The dirt road faded into a haze of swirling dust, where the horizon blurred under a relentless sun. No signpost guided the way, only a pair of weathered wooden stakes jutting from the parched earth like forgotten sentinels, and a faint path that dissolved into the scrubland of brittle sagebrush and twisted juniper trees. The wind had whipped up since dawn, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant rain that never came. This was no place for casual wanderers. It demanded intention or desperation to venture here. Henry rode with deliberate slowness, his boots worn from endless miles, his coat dusted with the grit of the frontier. His horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Rusty, plodded along without urging, its flanks slick with sweat from the journey westward. Henry's rifle lay across his saddle, a constant companion in these lawless lands, and his water flask bounced rhythmically against his thigh. Words had been scarce for him these past fordaysnet to the horse, not to the wind, not even to himself. Solitude suited him, until a faint wail pierced the quiet. It was subtle at first, a muffled sob that could have been the creak of branches or the sigh of the breeze through hollow rocks. But Henry reined in Rusty, tilting his head to listen. Another cry followed, sharper this time, laced with the fragile whimpers of newborns cutting through the arid air. He swung down from the saddle, securing Rusty to a gnarled stump, and pushed through the underbrush, his boots crunching on gravel and dead leaves. The air hung heavy with the tang of iron and faded smoke, remnants of neglect and hardship. There she was, bound to a rough-hewn post that leaned precariously in the soil, her arms twisted behind her back, her simple cotton dress torn at the seams and stained with dirt. Blood had crusted on her forehead, and her auburn hair fell in matted strands across a face bruised and shadowed by exhaustion. She didn't lift her gaze as he approached. Her eyes stared blankly at the ground, empty as the vast plains stretching beyond. At her feet, bundled in a threadbare shawl, lay two tiny infant twin girls, their skin flushed and delicate, no more than a few days old. One gnawed faintly on the edge of the fabric, the other let out a weak sigh, her eyelids fluttering against the harsh light. Henry said nothing. He knelt carefully, his movements measured to avoid startling her. Her lips parted, emitting a raspy whisper like sand scraping stone. "Don't take them." He drew his pocket knife, its blade glinting briefly in the sun, and sliced through the coarse ropes with steady precision. Her arms fell limp, and she slumped forward. He caught her before she hit the ground, her frame alarmingly light, as if grief had hollowed her out. Glancing down the slope, he spotted a dilapidated farmhouse roof sagging, chimney trailing a thin wisp of smoke. No figures moved there now, but the fresh marks on the ropes told of recent cruelty. First, he gathered the twins, wrapping them securely in his own saddle blanket and slinging it across his chest, like a makeshift carrier. Then, he lifted the woman cradling her knees and back and carried her toward Rusty. She was fragile in his arms, her breathing shallow. "You're coming with me," he murmured, his voice low and firm, like an oath sworn to the wind. She offered no response, her head lolling slightly as he mounted the horse and began the slow trek back. The journey homeward was painstaking. Henry walked Rusty to prevent jostling the infants. The woman's cheek rested against his shoulder at one point, and he adjusted the blanket to shield her from the gathering chill. Flurries of dust gave way to sparse raindrops, pattering against leaves and turning the path slick. By evening, as the sky darkened to a bruised purple, they reached his modest cabin, a sturdy log structure nestled in a valley of ponderosa pines, with a single room, a stone hearth, and a loft for storage. Henry nudged the door open with his shoulder and laid her on the narrow bed. Its quilt faded from years of use. The babies fussed louder now, their cries echoing in the confined space. He worked methodically, checking her wounds, noting the welts on her wrists and the swelling around her eye. Her dress was ripped, but he averted his eyes, draping a clean blanket over her. He stoked the fire, boiled water from the rain barrel, and retrieved the remnants of cow's milk from a sealed jar, warming it gently over the flames. The twins latched onto the makeshift bottles hungrily, their small faces relaxing as they fed. Only when they dozed off in an improvised bassinet did Henry allow himself to sit, his back against the wall, eyes fixed on the woman's faint breathing. Sleep evaded him that night. He tended the fire, his mind wandering to her expression, not terror. but a profound resignation, as if salvation was a myth she'd long abandoned. Dawn broke gray and cold. She stirred, a soft groan escaping her lips, her gaze shifting to the babies swaddled nearby in one of his flannel shirts. Her eyes met his set nearby, unchanged from the day before, his hair damp from the morning mist. She surveyed the room gradually, absorbing the sparse furnishings, a wooden table scarred from meals eaten alone, shelves lined with tins and tools, the faint scent of wood smoke clinging to everything. "You didn't abandon us," she breathed, her voice fragile. He shook his head. Attempting to sit, she winced, clutching her side. "They claimed I wasn't worth the food. That birthing girls was a curse, that I should have perished in labor." Henry remained silent, dipping a rag in warm water and extending it to her. She accepted it, pressing it to her bruised cheek with unsteady hands. Then, meeting his eyes squarely, she added, "You're not wary of the gossip, harboring a widow like me, with daughters and no protector." Henry inclined his head slightly. "You're secure here. That's what counts." Her expression softened, a flicker of astonishment crossing her features. He rose without further words, adding logs to the fire and slicing bread onto a pewter plate. She observed him, noting his deliberate movements of a man accustomed to isolation, yet untouched by its bitterness. His quiet wasn't oppressive, it was soothing, like the steady rhythm of a distant river. Outside, a hawk cried sharply before soaring away. Inside, the infants shifted restlessly. She adjusted herself, drawing the blanket closer, her tone tentative. "I'm Clara." Henry paused, then nodded. She averted her gaze to the flames. "I don't know how to repay you, sir." He glanced aside as he replied, "Henry, no surname. No origins, just Henry." The silence enveloped them, broken only by the wind shifting, rattling the shutters like insistent fingers. Clara leaned forward, the blanket slipping slightly. "You ought to know," she said deliberately. "They'll search for me. His relativity won't tolerate you interfering." Henry didn't face her. "I don't heed opinions from such folk." The fire crackled, embers scattering. She studied him, puzzling over his composure, and then, almost inaudibly, murmured, "Then perhaps I'm truly safe." Henry remained still, but a subtle tension eased from his posture. That evening, as she nursed the twins by the hearth's glow, he ventured outside. Rain had turned to sleet, slicking his hair and collar. The night sky loomed vast above the evergreens, and for the first time in ages, Henry sensed a shift, not elation, but a nascent sense of direction. He glanced back at the warm light spilling from the window. She endured, the girls persisted. Perhaps this path wasn't concluding, it was evolving. The hearth stayed alight, without fail, in the 7 days following Clara's arrival. Henry rose at first light, feeding the flames in the pre-dawn chill. He maintained it through twilight, replenishing logs amid his tasks. Clara noted his vigilance, though he never mentioned it, just as she observed how he excused himself outdoors when she tended the babies, granting her privacy as if it were inviolable. Their shared quietude wasn't strained, it was intentional, as though excessive speech might shatter the fragile tranquility. By week's end, Clara could stand steadily, her contusions shifting from deep violet to faint ochre. Her forearms, once chafed raw, flexed without agony. She donned Henry's extra shirt, cuffs rolled, and a skirt mended from old linens. It hung loosely, but she voiced no discontent. Her words, when uttered, were measured, cautious of overstepping. The twins, whom she dubbed her little meadowlarks, slumbered deeper, their complexions rosier. Henry whittled to rattles from oak remnants unprompted, etching simple leaf patterns, and placed them beside the bed one morn without fanfare. Clara's fingers traced the designs, her lips parting in silent wonder, but tears withheld. She nestled them with the infants and resumed her mending. Thus, they communicated through actions. Daily, Henry departed mid-morning, returning ere nightfall with provisions, grain, firewood, fabric scraps from the nearby settlement. Clara refrained from inquiring about his lavish, perhaps herding cattle or bartering goods. Secretly, she suspected he shielded their secrecy, warding off prying eyes. The village remained oblivious thus far, but whispers gathered like impending thunder. One crisp dawn, she offered assistance. He regarded her thoughtfully, that prolonged scrutiny reserved for uncertainties, then handed her a pail and gestured to the spring. Her first genuine smile emerged. The pail's heft anchored her, though frail, purpose fortified her stride. Outdoors, the breeze carried hints of melting frost and wildflowers. Birds darted amid the foliage, their flights graceful yet weighted. Clara drew water, splashing some on her hem, unperturbed. Pivoting back, she spotted Widow Harlan by the trail, astride her donkey, her expression brimming with inquiry. Harlan was a matron who deemed her company a benevolence. Her gaze was piercing, lips pursed thin, and her shawl perpetually knotted, defying gales. Her donkey bore a quilt embroidered with her monogram. She invariably proffered preserves on visits, though they soured like unripe fruit. "Well," Harlan remarked, eyeing the infant's garments fluttering on the line, "you appear remarkably vital for one discarded by her spouse's clan." Clara's hold on the pail tightened. Harlan's eyes sharpened. "Is Henry within?" Clara affirmed. Harlan advanced, her tone lowering conspiratorially. "Folks are murmuring about him sheltering you and those nameless young ones." Clara held her stare. "My name is Clara," Harlan snorted. "A name holds little without a band on your digit, my dear." She pivoted toward the cabin with a sly grin. "Inform Henry the mill delivered extra meal. Figured he'd require it, sustaining for now." Then she urged her donkey onward, departing leisurely, leaving Clara with a scalding flush of humiliation. Henry emerged shortly, having witnessed from indoors. Wordlessly, he relieved her of the pail and retreated inside. That night, Clara lingered post the twins' repose. No needlework, no swaying in the rocker, just gazing into the blaze as Henry mended the latch. At last, she voiced, "They'll perpetually deem me unwelcome." Henry persisted in his task. "You're welcomed here," she dissented. "Not solely here in this hamlet, in any settlement." He set the latch aside delicately. "I don't defer to hamlets." Her fists clenched. "You can't fathom being scorned as refused for birthing daughters, as an encumbrance unworthy of sustenance." Henry met her eyes. Then, in a voice calm as a still pond, "I comprehend isolation, so profound you forget your identity." She lifted her gaze. "I know the sting of fingers pointing at your reticence, labeling it flaw," he proceeded. "Being viewed as an enigma best unsolved." The flames danced. "I've never reared children," he acknowledged, glancing at the bassinet. "But I recognize their blessings, not afflictions." His gaze intensified. Henry delved into his vest and proffered a small pot of honey across the table. "Heard you favored it," he said gently. Clara's lips pressed, accepting it reverently, nodding without weeping. Come morning, she discovered him fortifying the boundary stakes. Silently, she fetched him drink, then lingered to supply fasteners. Laboring abreast in the brisk air, a bond subtly strengthened, like vines intertwining. One midday, she unearthed a tome on the ledge, a tattered collection of frontier tales. Inscribed within, "To Henry from your father, for when the trail grows weary." Clara perused, noting annotations and the aroma of leather and earth. Henry entered behind. "I didn't realize you read such stories," she murmured. "Only those that echo like ballads." She grinned. That eve, a storm brewed, unsettling the twins. One wailed hoarsely. Henry, unsolicited, cradled her, pacing murmurously. Peace restored, he faced Clara, regarding her anew, as if recovery extended beyond physical scars. Yet he uttered naught, resuming his vigil by the hearth. She positioned opposite, firelight reflecting in her eyes. The hush transformed, not dread-filled, but nurturing, hinting at unspoken growth. In that serenity, Clara inhaled deeply. Her reach for the bassinet steadied. For the first time in epics, she escaped shadows, forging substance tangible. Henry observed, serene, patient for her reclamation. Outdoors, gales buffeted the panes, but indoors, warmth prevailed, silence comforting. The frontier's rhythm persisted, days blending in routine, yet laced with nuance. Henry hunted dawnward, returning with Gamma Abbott or Deardo supplement stores. Clara prepared meals, her culinary skills reviving. Stews simmered with wild herbs, cornbread baked golden. The twins' coos filled the air, evolving from cries to exploratory gurgles, their eyes tracking movements with curiosity. Henry fashioned a swing from rope and plank, suspending it from a sturdy oak. Clara watched him test its strength, his muscles straining under his shirt. "For when they're bigger," he explained gruffly. She nodded, a warmth blooming in her chest, but tensions simmered beneath. Rumors from town trickled in via occasional visitors, a trader mentioning that lone rancher with the mystery woman, eyes inquisitive. One afternoon, as Clara hung laundry, a group of cowboys rode by the trail, their laughter coarse. One spotted her, tipping his hat mockingly. Heard Henry's got himself a family now. Careful, ma'am, folks say those girls are bad luck. Clara froze, but retorted steadily. Luck is what you make. They chuckled and rode on, but the words lingered like thorns. That evening, over supper, she confided in Henry. The judgments, they cut deep, he chewed thoughtfully. Judgments are wind-loud but fleeting. Yet he rose earlier the next day, patrolling the perimeter. His rifle cleaned meticulously. Clara sensed his protectiveness, a silent vow amid the uncertainty. High drama unfolded when a sudden fever gripped one twin. Clara paced frantically, cooling the child's brow, her fears resurfacing, memories of loss, of her husband's untimely death from illness. Henry rode into town at dusk, braving a downpour, returning with medicinal herbs from the apothecary. Boil these, he instructed, his voice steady despite soaked clothes. Through the night, they alternated vigils, Henry's large hands gentle as he administered doses. By dawn, the fever broke, the child's cries subsiding to peaceful slumber. In gratitude's wake, Clara touched his arm. You saved us again. He shrugged, but his eyes held hers longer. This moment sparked debate in her mind. Was reliance weakness, or strength in unity? The frontier demanded self-sufficiency, yet interdependence forged bonds unbreakable. As weeks progressed, Clara ventured further, gathering berries, tending a small garden plot Henry tilled. She unearthed seeds from his stores, planting with hope. For fresh greens come spring, she said. He watched approvingly, their conversations lengthening, tales of his nomadic youth, her stifled dreams of independence. Yet controversy brewed when widow Harlan returned, bearing gossip. Towns divided, some say Henry's a hero, others a fool for defying kin laws. Clara bristled. What laws condone brutality? Harlan clucked. Tradition, dear. Sons inherit, daughters burden. This ignited internal conflict for Clara. Challenge societal norms, or conform. Henry's stance was clear, defiance, but at what cost? A climactic storm hit midweek, winds howling, rain lashing. The roof leaked. Henry climbed to patch it amid lightning. Clara held the ladder, heart pounding as thunder roared. He descended safely, drenched, and in the aftermath, as they dried by the fire, she whispered, "You're more than a rescuer." He met her gaze, a spark igniting unspoken tension. The part neared closure with another high stake. Distant gunshots echoed one night. Henry grabbed his rifle, stepping out. Clara barred the door, twins clutched close. He returned unharmed, poachers, he said, but the incident underscored perils. We must be vigilant, he urged. Clara agreed, their alliance solidifying. Through these trials, their connection deepened, setting stage for further evolution. The cabin, once a refuge, transformed into a sanctuary of resilience. As the sanctuary of the cabin solidified amid trials and tender moments, the seasons whispered of change, melting the last vestiges of winter into the promise of renewal. Spring arrived not with grand announcements, but in quiet revelations, the first tentative buds on the aspens, the trickle of streams swelling with snowmelt, the earthy aroma of soil stirring from its slumber. The world outside mirrored the shifts within, where Clara's spirit, once fractured, began to mend in ways both seen and unspoken. Henry noticed it in the small things, the way she hummed old hymns while churning butter, her voice a soft thread weaving through the air. How her laughter emerged more freely when the twins grasped at the wooden toys he'd crafted, their chubby fingers exploring the world with unbridled wonder. The girls had grown, their babble turning into mimicry of sounds around them, echoing the birdsong that now filled the mornings. Clara's form had filled out too, her cheeks regaining a healthy glow from nourishing meals and the security of restful nights. She braided her hair with wildflowers picked from the meadow, a simple adornment that spoke of reclaiming joy. Henry, ever the quiet craftsman, turned his hands to more purposeful creations. He began shaping a sturdy high-chair from cedar planks, sanding each edge until it gleamed smooth, envisioning the twins perched there come summer. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of amber and rose. He presented it wordlessly by the hearth. Clara's fingers traced the armrests, feeling the labor etched into the wood. No thanks were exchanged. Instead, she met his eyes with a nod that carried the weight of gratitude deeper than words. But peace on the frontier was fleeting, a fragile bloom amid thorns. Whispers from town grew louder, carried on the winds of travelers and merchants. One market day, Henry returned with flour sacks and a furrowed brow. Having overheard saloon talk, that rancher's playing house with a cursed widow, mark my words, it'll bring ruin. He said nothing to Clara, but that night, as they sat by the fire, she sensed his unrest. "What's troubling you?" she asked, her needle pausing mid-stitch. He poked at the embers. "Folks got opinions. Don't sit right." She set her sewing aside. "Let them talk. We've built something here." Yet doubt crept in, sparking internal debate. Was their haven truly insulated from society's judgments, or would external forces erode it? This question hung like a storm cloud, fueling tension that would soon erupt. The first real test came with the arrival of uninvited kin. Clara was kneading dough at the table when hoofbeats thundered up the trail. Peering through the window, her heart sized 3 riders, cloaked in dust, one in a familiar gray vest, her late husband's brother, Elias, flanked by nephews with hardened stares and holstered pistols. Their presence dredged up memories of beatings and accusations. The night they'd bound her for shaming the bloodline, with daughters instead of sons. Henry stepped out before they dismounted, his stance casual but unyielding, hands loose at his sides, no weapon drawn, yet his presence commanded respect. The men reined in, Elias sneering from atop his mount. "That woman in there? She's family property, and those whelps bear our name." Henry's voice cut clear. "Blood don't make ownership. She's free now." Elias leaned forward, spittle flecking his beard. "She was wed to my kin. We decide her fate." The nephews shifted, fingers itching toward guns. "Hand her over peaceful-like, or we'll take her." Tension crackled like dry lightning. Clara, inside, clutched the twins, her breath ragged. Debate raged in her mind: submit to avoid bloodshed, or stand firm against injustice. The frontier's code often favored might over right, but Henry's quiet defiance challenged that. Henry advanced a step, eyes locked on Elias. "Ride off now, or regret crossing this line." A standoff ensued, wind whistling through the pines. One nephew drew halfway, but Elias waved him down, cursing under his breath. "She ain't worth the lead." He spat, wheeling his horse. They retreated into the haze, but not without a parting glare that promised return. Henry watched until they vanished, then entered, finding Clara trembling by the door. "I didn't seek this burden on you," she whispered. He shook his head. "Burden? It's choice. No one chains another here." His words ignited a spark debate on autonomy versus family ties, a hot topic in these lands where blood oaths clashed with individual freedom. That night, sleep eluded her. She rocked the twins, mind swirling, flee to spare him or stay and fight. Henry sharpened tools by lamplight, his silence a bastion. In the aftermath, he fortified the homestedrine foring shutters, digging a hidden cache for supplies, teaching Clara to load the rifle with calm precision. "Not for fear," he said, "for readiness." She practiced, her shots improving, empowering her amid vulnerability. Yet this preparation stirred controversy. Was arming a woman progressive, or perilous in a man's world? Whispers reached them via a neighbor's visit, praising Henry's stand, but warning of backlash. Climactic drama peaked during a midnight raid. Thunder rumbled as shadows moved outside Delia's and more men, torches flickering. Gunfire shattered the quiet. A bullet grazed the doorframe. Henry returned fire from the window, his aim true, downing one assailant. Clara, heart pounding, shielded the twins in the corner, but when a figure burst through the back, she fired her shot, wounding the intruder, who fled yelping. The skirmish ended with the attackers retreating, leaving blood trails and spent casings. Dawn revealed the toll, a barn window shattered, Henry nursing a shallow graze. Clara bandaged him, tears mixing with resolve. "This violence, it's endless," she murmured. He cupped her chin. "Not if we end it our way." This moment fueled debate, justified self-defense or escalating cycle. The event bonded them deeper, Clara's hands steady as she helped repair damages, their shared peril forging unbreakable trust. As spring bloomed fuller, lighter moments interspersed. Henry surprised her with a picnic by the creek, fresh trout grilled, berries gathered. They watched the twins crawl on a blanket, laughter bubbling. "You've given me life again," she confessed. He smiled faintly. "You've given me reason." Yet underlying tension persisted, rumors of a posse forming in town. Debates on honor killings versus mercy. Another high point arose with a letter's rival, via dusty courier, from a distant aunt, offering Clara sanctuary in a prosperous ranch eastwardland. Help. A fresh start sans Henry. Inheritance promised security, but at the cost of this budding home. She showed him, voice wavering. He read silently, then, "Your choice, no plea, just space." The bait tore at her, stability or love's uncertainty. The frontier valorized independence, yet connection's pull was fierce. As she pondered, packing half-heartedly, Henry saddled horses without comment. At the porch, bag in hand, she hesitated. "Do you wish me gone?" His facade cracked. "Wish you stay, but only freely." Tears welled. "Build with me, then." He approached, vulnerability raw. "I'll offer steadiness, a life earned together." She embraced him, the decision sealing their path. No raid followed immediately, but vigilance remained, their union a quiet rebellion against norms. Through festivals, a town fair where they danced under lanterns, ignoring stairs and chores shared, their story evolved. Debates on gender roles surfaced when Clara bartered goods herself, earning respect from some, scorn from others. A climactic argument with widow Harlan ensued. "Women like you disrupt order," Clara countered. "Order that breaks us? No more." As part two waned, summer's heat approached, trials tempering their bond into something resilient, ready for final reckonings. As summer's warmth enveloped the homestead in a golden haze, chasing away the last echoes of spring's uncertainties, Clara and Henry found their rhythm deepening into a tapestry of shared purpose and unspoken vows. The fields around the cabin burst with wildflower speas and lupines swaying in the breezing. The creek ran fuller, its waters murmuring secrets to the willows lining its banks. This renewal mirrored the quiet strength blossoming within their family, where the twins' first tentative steps across the wooden floor marked milestones of hope, their giggles a counterpoint to the lingering shadows of past threats. Yet, the frontier's unforgiving nature ensured that tranquility was but a brief interlude, with storms both literal and metaphorical gathering on the horizon to test the foundations. They delayed. Henry rose with the sun, his routine a blend of labor and vigilance, mending fences that bordered their modest acreage, tending the vegetable patch where Clara's planted seeds now sprouted green shoots of corn and beans, and scouting the trails for any sign of intruders. His hands, calloused from years of solitary toil, now moved with a gentler and carving a set of wooden blocks for the girls, each etched with simple animals like deer and eagles, symbols of the wild freedom he wished for them. Clara, her confidence restored, took to baking pies from foraged berries, the sweet aroma filling the air and drawing Henry in from his chores with a rare, soft smile. Their evenings by the hearth evolved too. Conversations flowed easier, touching on dreams deferred, her longing for a garden that bloomed year-round, his memories of a childhood ranch lost to drought. But beneath this domestic harmony simmered debates that echoed the broader struggles of the American West, the clash between tradition and progress, the right to self-determination versus familial claims, and the moral quandary of violence as a means to protect innocence. These themes surfaced in hushed talks after the twins slept, Clara voicing her fears. "What if defending us costs you everything? The law out here favors blood ties over justice." Henry would counter steadily. "Justice ain't handed down, it's forged, and some ties bind to tight the choke." Their exchanges, laced with passion, highlighted the era's tensions, where women like Clara challenged patriarchal norms, sparking internal conflict for Henry, uphold his lone wolf ways, or embrace vulnerability in partnership. The first major escalation came during a sweltering afternoon market run in town. Henry loaded the wagon with hides to trade, Clara accompanying him for the first time. The twins bundled safely in a sling, the bustling square filled with vendors hawking tools, fabrics, and gossip turned heads as they arrived. Whispers followed, That's the widow he stole from her kinbold as brass. A burly blacksmith, known for his conservative views, confronted Henry at the stall. You're stirring trouble, harboring her. Family law says she belongs back east with her in-laws. Henry met his gaze unflinchingly. Law's blind if it ignores cruelty. She's chosen her path. The exchange drew a crowd, dividing opinions. Some nodded in support, admiring Henry's stand against outdated customs. Others muttered about disrupting the natural order, fueling a heated debate that spilled into the saloon later, where bets were placed on impending showdowns. Clara, overhearing, felt a surge of defiance mixed with dread. This public scrutiny ignited her own dilemma: remain silent to avoid escalation, or speak out and risk alienating allies? Opting for the latter, she addressed a group of women at the fabric merchant. Birthing daughters isn't a sin, it's a gift, and no man owns me like cattle. Her words sparked controversy, with some women sharing stories of similar injustices, while others clucked disapproval, fearing social backlash. The ride home was tense, Henry praising her courage. You lit a fire today. But Clara worried. Fires can burn out of control. Drama intensified with a natural calamity, a fierce thunderstorm that rolled in like an omen. Lightning cracking the sky and rains flooding the creek. The cabin held, but the barn took damage, a beam collapsing under the deluge. As they assessed the wreckage at dawn, hoofbeats announced visitors, not foes, but a posse from town, led by the sheriff, a grizzled veteran with a reputation for impartiality. Heard about your troubles, he drawled, eyeing the repairs. Elias and his boys are rallying more kin claim. You're squatting on disputed land now. Henry stiffened. This spreads mine, deeded fair. The sheriff nodded but warned. They're pushing for a hearing. Violence brewing if you don't yield her. This revelation thrust them into a moral crossroads. Compromise by sending Clara away temporarily for safety, or defy and prepare for conflict. Debates raged in their minds and allowed Clara arguing for negotiation to spare bloodshed. Henry insisting, yielding once invites endless taking. The sheriff's visit divided the homestead's peace, prompting Henry to fortify further, stockpiling ammunition, teaching Clara evasion tactics in the woods. Yet this preparation stirred ethical questions. Was arming for war glorifying violence, or essential self-preservation in a lawless land? Frontier tales often romanticized gunfights, but Clara pondered the toll on innocence. Like the twins who played obliviously amid the tension, climaxes built rapidly. One moonlit night, scouts reported Elias's camp nearby, fires dotting the ridge, shadows of armed men plotting. Henry rode out alone at dusk, confronting them in a bold, preemptive move. End this now, he called across the gulch. Elias emerged, rifle cocked. Give up the woman, or we burn you out. Words escalated to threats. Henry revealing a hidden allier, reformed outlaw friend who'd joined his side, tipping the odds. A skirmish erupted, shots exchanged, one of Elias's men wounded, forcing retreat. Henry returned bloodied, but victorious, Clara tending his arm. It could have been worse, she whispered. He nodded, but it's not over. This encounter fueled heated debate. Was Henry's aggression justified defense or provocation? Town gossip split throws versus vigilantes, with Clara grappling guilt. My past brings this storm. Henry reassured. Our future weathers it together. The incident drew supporters. A neighboring family offered aid, sharing supplies and watch duties, highlighting community versus isolation. A core American value clashing with rugged individualism. As tensions peaked, a final confrontation loomed during the annual Harvest Festivala gathering of ranchers with games, feasts, and underlying rivalries. Henry and Clara attended warily, the twins in tow, seeking normalcy. But Elias ambushed in the crowd, grabbing Clara's arm. You're coming home. Chaos ensued. Henry intervened, fists flying as onlookers formed a ring. Punches landed, blood drawn, with Clara breaking free and wielding a nearby tool to fend off an attacker. The sheriff broke it up, arresting Elias for assault, his kin scattering. In the melee's wake, testimonies poured in, women recounting similar abuses, swaying public opinion against outdated tyrannies. This brawl, dramatic and visceral, resolved debates. Violence, when defensive, could catalyze change, exposing injustices. Clara's bravery earned respect, shifting perceptions from cursed widow to resilient pioneer. Henry, bruised but unbowed, proposed formally that night under festival lanterns. Mary meant it out of need, but want. She accepted, tears of joy mingling with relief. Their wedding followed swiftly. A simple ceremony by the creek with witnesses from town sheriff officiating. Neighbors bearing gifts of quilts and preserves. Vows exchanged were heartfelt, Clara promising partnership, Henry vowing protection without possession. The twins toddled as flower girls, petals scattering like blessings. Festivities lingered, with dances and toasts debating the day's events. Change comes hard, but right prevails. In the ensuing peace, their life flourished. Henry expanded the ranch, Clara's garden yielding bounties shared with allies. The twins grew into spirited toddlers, embodying hope. Years blurred, but the bond endured through droughts debated as fate or folly. Bounties celebrated as earned grace. One twilight on the porch, Henry reflected, we didn't just survive, we chose. Clara leaned close, and in choosing, found freedom. The sun set on a horizon free of shadows. Their story a testament to resilience against injustice. What are your thoughts on the themes of violence and injustice in this tale? Share in the comments. Do you believe defensive force is ever justified, or does it perpetuate cycles? Take a stand and express your views. I'd love to hear how this resonates with you.